And welcome to Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, episode 230. Today we're going to be looking at the submissions to the February Photo Challenge, or February Nature Photo Challenge indeed. We've had over a dozen entries, or actually an actual dozen entries. So that's what we'll be checking through, so stick around. So yes, and welcome to Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, episode 230, now that I've finally remembered. Yes, so today is the February Nature Photo Challenge. So 2 weeks ago I set the challenge, and we've had, like I say, about a dozen responses thereabouts. But we are here live on YouTube. If you happen to be watching us as we're going out live, then leave a comment in the chat. Let me know you're here, let me know where you're from, let me know what the weather's doing, all the usual chat. If you've not joined in the chat before, then just please do. You'll find there's a friendly bunch of regulars who are always very welcoming. In fact, I see a few of them in already. Let's see what we have. Nadia says hi from a very wet and windy Fife. It's in Scotland. Adrian says hi, all from a breezy, overcast and drizzly, very fine rain, South Lincolnshire, UK. April says greetings all from a very sunny Long Island, New York. To which Adrian says, lucky you, April. Yes, yeah, absolutely. At the moment here in Castle Douglas, it is wet, it is wild, it is cold, it is a bit grim. So yeah, not particularly that much fun. Yes, a little bit of sort of conversation going back between April and Adrian. John says good day all from Ohio. Nick says hello from Bath. It's a bit wet and windy out. Becca says hi all from Ayr. It was blustery and rainy earlier, but the sun is out now. Ah, well, Ayr is west of here, and I think if the weather is generally moving in that direction, then sooner or later that might reach here. You never know. Marilyn says hello from a sunny Colorado, and Janet says hello from a snowy, relatively warm, from -2 or -2 degrees up from now -2 degrees C, up from -10 during the week. That's in Canada. So yes, we have people, we have weather. we have a podcast. So let's make a start. So yes, what are we talking about? Well, actually, I'll tell you what, let's do a quick Smug Points update first of all, because the way things have been going on with my computer over the last month or two, I haven't really been able to do much in the way of challenges or submissions for feedback, and I'm hoping that will all change now, because, fingers crossed, the computer now seems to be fine for the best part of about 2.5 weeks. So I'm kind of feeling like I can start relaxing now. So next week I'm going to probably do a feedback session where people can send in images, and I will do my best to kind of help them understand how to improve their photography. So we'll talk about that at the end of the podcast, so stick around for that. But we still kind of, basically, so Smug Points have been accumulated so far through January and February by, if you've turned up and left a comment, you've got 5 Smug Points, and that's pretty much how it's run through. And so regulars, April, Susan, Nadia, Janet and Meg have all accumulated 40 Smug Points so far, and Becca and John 30, and everybody else has been less than that depending on how often they've turned up. But that will all change today, because we have the 2 weeks. So yes, 2 weeks ago I set the I set the challenge, but also I gave an outline on February and nature, and this notion that basically February, just as we've been sort of reading through the comments on the weather, can be wildly different. Not just from place to place, but also sometimes it feels like from hour to hour. It can be depth of winter, deep snow and ice, or you can have crocuses and daffodils pushing up through, and it can be quite sunny and it can be quite spring-like. And so we discussed and looked at whole different ways that you can approach the idea of photographing February. And then I set the challenge, and like I say, we've now had a dozen responses, and we're going to go through these photos. So feel free to leave comments as we go. I'm not going to be giving too much in the way of feedback on the images. This is more kind of celebration, a look at the way different people have approached the topic. And that's really part of the fun enjoyment parts of these challenges, really, is that what happens is you get to see how other people have approached the very same topic. you might think that a single word or phrase will tend to bring in similar photos, but actually everybody comes at it in a completely different way. And I think that's really good for just reinforcing that idea that your way is okay, that essentially what you're trying to do with your photography is to develop your unique voice, your unique eye, allowing you to see the world in the way that you see it, and that's all right. It's not that everybody else sees it one way and then you see it the other way. It's just everybody sees it in a slightly different way. And that's great. That's the wonderful thing about photography. You can have 4 of you standing in exactly the same place with exactly the same stuff in front of you, with exactly the same lighting conditions, and you'll all pick out something else, something different that you want to focus on. And even if you photograph the same thing, you'll edit it in a slightly different way as well. And that's the brilliant thing about photography. What have we got here? I think there's still a bit of Adrian and April chatting about back and forth. So, yes, so part of the fun then of the February challenge is seeing how different people have done it. But what it does mean though is at the end of this I'll go through and I'm going to award some bonus smug points to my favourite of the images, my top 3, and that will then decide essentially who's won the January-February smug points accumulation, and whoever wins gets to choose next month's challenge. So that should be fun. So stick around. everything to play for. Right, okay, so where are we? Let's make a start then. So what we're going to do is I'm going to start with Marilyn, and Marilyn sent in this one. Cold. Ice, but really quite abstract too. Marilyn says, there is a waterfall at our botanic garden, and thanks to a recent cold front, it was completely frozen. This image is of the ice formations at the bottom of the waterfall. As the water splashed and froze, it made these interesting formations and created an abstract of sorts. The colours enhanced the overall feeling of cold, which it certainly was on the day that I was there. Yes, blues, ice, but that lovely round, it's a strange mix of ice, isn't it? You've got a kind of crunchy bits and like these kind of little bits here where you can feel tiny little splashes of indentations, but then where it's sort of built up, it's gone really kind of rounded and smooth. So, and then you've got different levels of kind of transparency and translucency within it, and the light catching it in many different ways. It looks like there might even be a bit of fresh water running through in the background there as well. So yeah, really lovely kind of abstract. And if you're talking February, if you're talking that kind of heart of winter, and you're talking, was it Marilyn, Colorado, I think, yes, you can get cold. So I thought that was a kind of a nice start to our February challenge there from Marilyn. So thank you for sending that one. And yeah, so April says, I can feel that cold. Adrian says, I love the blues that are coming through. Yes, the blues do always give that feeling of cold in a way. You know, we've talked before about if you do colour shifts and what have you, the more you move into the yellows, the warmer it feels. The more you move into the blues, the colder it feels. Becca says, looks like a polar landscape. You could put a tiny masted ship in the corner and it would look like someone from Shackleton's Explorations. Well, I suppose there's a whole world of, there is a whole world of taking little toys and putting them into landscapes and what have you. So, you know, potentially there, yes, get yourself a little boat or something and stick one into the landscape. Meg joins us and says, hello, everyone. Right, okay, so we'll move on now to Mark. And Mark sent in this one, a full moonlit covered bridge. A full moon, a clear sky with snow on the ground. It's not common here in Union County, Ohio. It was about 5 degrees Fahrenheit, or minus 10 degree, the minus 10 degree chill factor. So that's, so nighttime scene with snow on the ground and the covered bridge. And what I really do like about this is that the covered bridge kind of, you can see through, and it gives you this sort of frame within a frame. I know it's a bit small for if you were doing a frame within a frame photo, you know, that was the challenge. There wouldn't be quite enough of it, but there's just enough of it in this to enhance. We're looking through, and because it blocks off and takes out part of the gradient, and most of the darker sky here is above there, what we can see is on the horizon it's lighter, which you can just about make out through the trees to the right. But because most of the sky is darker blue above the trees and the bridge, it kind of creates this lighter patch through the bridge. And that in turn then kind of gives us, so it draws the eye that little bit more. If it was completely dark at the end of the bridge, we would see the outline of it, but then it would sort of shut off. But having that little extra slightly brighter patch there just draws the eye nicely in. Nice little bit of rule of thirds kind of thing. The leading lines, oh, come back there. The leading lines coming in through the from the road, and these the trees on the left kind of creating an extra level kind of sort of leading you into the picture. So very well constructed there, Mark. Nicely put together. Also interestingly for me, because I mean, I know from watching American movies that covered bridges are quite a big thing, quite a common thing, I think, especially, you know, out in more rural areas. But it's not something like this. You just do not get them in the UK. It's there's nothing remotely like it. You just don't get covered bridges. A bridge is a bridge. If it's covered, it's a tunnel. So it's really quite interesting seeing that from a sort of different cultural perspective as well. So yes, lovely shot there, Mark. Thank you for sending that one in. Becca says, very atmospheric, the dark blue of the sky is gorgeous. April says, I like the blue in this colour and I love covered bridges. And John says, I always like CB shots or covered bridges shots as well. Okay, so next up then, we're going to go to, you caught a quick glimpse of it there, but it's from Rosemary. Over in, I think, Washington State, USA. And Rosemary said there were many challenges in shooting this image from indoors. Focus was difficult due to wind and movement and layers of twigs between the subject and me. Options for my own position from behind the window made composition tricky, especially since the story needs to include both the hummingbird and the falling snow. The bird herself is programmed to hide, so she is sitting in a manner that makes her blend in. The raw file showed her nearly in silhouette, but I was able to pull out some of the colour to help define her a bit. I hope I've emphasised her adequately without making the image looking over-processed. It's a fine balance. Yeah, now, actually, I just realised that my head's kind of sort of in the way here. Having said that, I forgot to flick across and actually show you the photo. So what will I do? Not as far as that. Okay, let me tell you what. Let me just come back here, minimize that, and close that. That one shouldn't have been open anyway. And I'll put this on the desktop slightly more like this, I think, just for this shot here, so that I'm not blocking too much of the image. And now you get a better sense of the composition of Rosemary's hummingbird. And it's a very pretty shot. It's a very pretty shot. We've got the hummingbird. And yes, that difficulty of trying to bring the tones out. You know, and it's one of those reasons for why, if at all possible, shoot in RAW. You know, now maybe you do RAW and JPEG depending on your camera settings. Obviously, if you've got a mobile phone, most of the time most of these don't do RAW, unless some do. You have to go in and play around with the settings. But mobile phones, by and large, do all the work for you. But if you're using a DSLR or mirrorless camera, then shoot in RAW, and then that gives you an awful lot more options in the post-processing. Because when you shoot in JPEG, it fixes your lights and darks, whereas the RAW it records every single pixel. And it does mean that in your editing process, you can very often draw much more detail out of the shadows, or even draw them down from the highlights in a way that you just can't do with a JPEG. And Rosemary has very successfully then managed to draw a lot more detail out of this. It does feel we can now zoom in and actually get a real sense of the hummingbird just sort of sitting on the twig. But then as an overall look, I love over on the left here where you can see the snowflakes kind of coming down against a darker patch in the back. So it's very moody, very atmospheric. As Rosemary said, very difficult to actually capture. So yeah, very nicely done there, Rosemary. And so thank you very much for for showing us that one, sending that is, and letting us know kind of how you dealt with the image as well. Oh, Becca says, I love the muted tones and the lines. April says, poor little hummingbird, must be cold, it is so cute. Right, okay, next up, well, let's go to April. And where are we? So April sent in this one. So here we're back in with snow, but we have the river running through a snowy wood with sunshine as well. And April says, this photo was taken late afternoon at a park that has a stream in it. The sun is going down and I like how it brightens the snow. I walked in the snow to take this picture. It was cold and it's not easy to do winter shots and it's not comfortable by far. This is true. If you happen to be out in the snow, it's a tricky thing to do. And of course, generally speaking, fingers can get frozen very, very quickly. I think we talked, was it 2 weeks ago, about the notion that you can get gloves which have little rubber tips on them, which might even have like the sort of enough of a kind of like silicone pad which might allow you to sort of still operate your mobile phone or touch screen with it, but also has enough grip to perhaps be able to sort of manipulate the settings on your camera as well. So those are maybe things you need to look out for if you think you're going to be doing much in the way of outdoor photography when it's cold. What do we say? Becca says, "Oh, I like the flash of blue sky reflected in the water." And John says, "Good one, April. Also liked the hummingbird shot." Yes, and I think this actually helps lift it as well. We have the stream running down between the patches of snow and trees, but that little splash of blue in the sky reflecting in the water does lift it, does create, it stops this whole patch here being dark, but actually kind of adds an extra layer of tone really to the picture. So nicely done there, April, and thank you for sending that one in. Well, Meg says, I really like the curves of the trees with that one too. Okay, next up then, we're going to look at Becca. And Becca sent in this one and said, I took this photo in the days after the big storm here. Yeah, we had quite a large storm here a couple of weeks back, which, it was probably one of the biggest storms we've actually had here. We had a red weather warning, which is the first red weather warning I've ever known in the 20 years that I've lived in this corner of Scotland. You get yellow weather warnings. Well, we've got a yellow weather warning at the moment because of the kind of high winds and rain, but not the red levels. And a lot of trees came down. But anyway, Becca says, yes, there was a massive tree down in the park, but behind it was a smaller tree with blossom just coming out that had also been brought down. Blossom is ephemeral anyway, but I felt doubly so as the tree was so damaged it would never bloom again. Something really quite poignant in that. So it's an interesting one there that, it's this picture of blossom, tree blossom, which I have to say is very early for this time of year. But yes, that kind of poignant sense of what have you. Interestingly, we see Becca's boots here, the colour, that kind of pinky red, also tying in with the pinky red of the blossoms that haven't quite come out yet. So quite an interesting colour scheme. In fact, I do tend to feel, Becca, with this, it's a lovely story. I think maybe a slightly different composition. Actually, if you kind of just come in a little bit closer, and I think here where we've got the two, and then maybe a clip of your boots, or if you had sort of gone slightly to your left and down a bit, and so you sort of shot slightly more from this angle, and then these smaller buds could have been sitting, they would have sat sort of slightly closer in relation, but they would have been maybe out of focus and like working like little echoes. It's a while since I've talked about the use of echoes in composition. The idea with echoes is that you might have your key subject, and then there's sort of hints of it. So, if you have like a red flower in the foreground, but there's out of focus little red blobs in the background, they're like little, because there's other red flowers that are out of focus, then it's like echoes of the main theme. And this is where you've kind of got that, because over in the right here, there's smaller bits of blossom. But I think if you kind of come down, filled more of the screen with these two here, but just come down and angled yourself slightly so that these created little echoes in the background around it, I think could have really kind of enhanced and lifted this photo. So, lovely story, like the idea. Little suggestion for future shots if you're thinking about that, Becca. But yes, thank you very much for sending that one in. Where are we? Oh, April says pretty white flowers, early birds. John says interesting composition, Becca. Becca says good points about the composition, thank you. Right, okay, so then we will move on to John. Now, John in Ohio has really got a winter woods going here. And he says, winter in the woods. I took this last winter while visiting my brother near Midland, Ontario in Canada. All right, so it's not Ohio. I was just thinking with Mark saying that Ohio didn't get the snow on the ground very often. It's a lot of snow. I wondered if it was taken around the same time. But no, this is when you were in Canada. Says typical weather for that, where he is for that season. I could not find much to photograph around other than snow. Well, but I think that's it. You've got the woods, you've got the forest with the snow, and that kind of is really quite interesting. I think when you've done this looks like you've probably really drawn quite a lot out of the shadows, and I wonder if it might actually have slightly more impact if you allow the darks to come back in a little bit. It's quite a bright photo, but because you've got you've got these sort of lovely, the dead leaves probably could be beech. Yeah, those look like beech, which seem to hang on with that slightly orange effect against the very white snow. I know I said I wasn't really going to do a lot of critique or whatever, a little bit of feedback, but I do just think that with this photo, I'll just open that with Photoshop for a moment. All I want to do is just show you that if we just take something like the curves and we grab and just darken, do you see, just a little bit, it just gives us that little bit of contrast, and actually I think enhances that sense of the woods. Now you can play around with it, you know, obviously, you don't want to go too dark or what have you, and you would do it to your level of your particular level of taste. But I think something like that can really kind of boost that sense of the woods almost menacing. The orange of the dead beech leaves kind of stands out a little bit more, and it's got, you know, it's a nice kind of rich colour palette with the browns and oranges against the white, but I think that little slightly darker bit of the woods makes a difference. But anyway, that aside, lovely photo. Many thanks for sending that one in, John. Nadia says, lovely shot, John. Meg says, absolutely beautiful. Becca says, gosh, looks like something from a fairy tale, almost illustrative. And Nick says, nice photo, John. Cool. Right, well, where are we? You know, do this. Yeah, so just as a wee reminder that if you happen to be finding these podcasts useful, interesting, entertaining, and would like to support them, then buymeacoffee.com/Kim Ayres is one of the ways you can do it. And of course, if you haven't done so already, do subscribe. And but also like, if you don't mind liking the click like below. It helps the algorithms a little bit. It lets YouTube know that somebody's actually watching this and enjoying it, and maybe just maybe they'll show it to a couple more people. You never know, we live in hope. And of course, don't forget, invite your friends along as well. I'm sure all of you have friends who take photos as well, and do tell them about the podcasts. Right, okay, so where do we go now then? Let's move on to Nadia. So Nadia up next, and we have this photo, which is, you know, really quite special, I think, this one. Now, Nadia says, I'm busy redecorating my living room at the moment, therefore I'm sending in this from the archive, an image that was taken back in February. It was a February photo, but back in 2019 when we were out on a weekend drive. Now, I'm trying to think. This is one of these very well-known bridges. It's an old... words escape me. Carrbridge? No, Carrbridge? Can you remember? Nadia, if you can remember what it's called, leave it in the comments. But it is one of these kind of quite ancient bridges, very well photographed. In fact, if you take the image and drop it into Google Images, I think you'll probably find lots of references to it. So yes, if you see that, if you're ever there, I think you kind of have to leap out of the car and go and take a photo of it. But having said that, it's also a case of, it's not just a case of taking a photo. What's lovely about this is the glorious sense of colours as well. That, you know, you've got, it's, you know, the sun's just disappearing off the sky, but we've got all the yellows in the sky and it's bouncing off, so it's catching under the bridge, got bits sort of colours and the rich reds of the earth in the water, the yellows bouncing around. It's a very colourful, rich photo, and very moody, very atmospheric. The only thing I would say, Nadia, is it feels like you just need to tilt it anti-clockwise about a degree or two. It doesn't quite feel straight. Now, it might be my monitor, but I do tend to feel that. But that aside, I mean, you know how obsessive I can sometimes get with the straight horizon. Tricky here because there isn't a direct horizon, except for the fact that it kind of feels like, I think this line here, which you've got just running on the edge of the bridge, and light is echoed in the background there with a sort of fallen bit of tree and a ridge. I think if you just tilt it back just a little bit, and I think it would just, probably the rest of the world doesn't care. It would certainly sit slightly more comfortable with me. But lovely, beautiful shot, that one, Nadia. You're justifiably proud of that. You should be. So yes, thank you for sending that one in. Where are we at? Oh, Robert from Texas joins us, but not from Texas. He's in Alexandria, Egypt, and says howdy. Welcome, Robert. So glad you could make it. So glad you managed to figure out the time difference. I guess it's probably just a kind of quick say hi and disappear. Yes, while we're sitting in a cold and wild, wet, windy Scotland. Oh, warmth of Egypt. I would imagine February is probably the perfect time to go to Egypt. You know, stops it being absolutely baking hot. But yes, I've seen one or two of your photos on Facebook as you've been posting them, and yeah, look forward to seeing more. April says, nice natural bridge. Becca says, is that Packhorse Bridge? Yes, that sounds. Oh, Nadia then goes on and says Packhorse Bridge. Yes, I thought it was Packhorse. Yes, that was the phrase I was looking for, Packhorse Bridge. Becca says, lovely shot. Adrian says, beautiful. John says, great shot of the bridge. And April said, nice one, Robert. Oh, Robert says, February is the perfect time. Looking forward to editing the photos in your podcast. Cool. Right. Okay. So next up then. After Nadia, we are going to Nick in Bath, and Nick has been out with the crocuses, or perhaps not, actually, because Nick says, this is my entry for the February Nature Photo Challenge. I have a few crocuses in the garden, and they come up every year, and an absolute pleasure to see. This year they are still just a green stalk, so here's a photo from last year. And that's it's so kind of typical. Yeah, crocuses can come up at almost any point in the month, and then sometimes not at all. But I do love a crocus, and the purple crocuses, I think, are they always kind of grab me. There's something so beautiful about that colour, and there's something so, you know, smooth, velvety about the about the petals. And then when you get the water drops on the petals as well, always kind of adds an extra lift of texture. And to go back to what I was saying earlier to Becca, here you can see another example where we've got the main photo, the main subject in focus, and then we have these echoes over in the background here. Perhaps maybe with echoes they would be slightly smaller, slightly further out of focus, but it's still the basic idea that we know that there's more there. And then that purple is contrasting really strongly with the strong green leaves as well. So bright, colourful, nicely done there, Nick. So yeah, thanks very much for sending that one in. Oh, Nadia's saying thank you to everyone. April says, oh, what a deep purple, very pretty. Adrian says, they are just appearing around here another week on the challenge, and I would have done these, or the snowdrops. Oh yeah, I mean, well, snowdrops have been up here since, well, for the last 3 weeks maybe, here in Scotland. Would have thought they'd have been out down in Lincolnshire, but Again, it all depends where you are. And sometimes if you're in you go to a park in a town, it tends to be slightly warmer. And so sometimes the flowers tend to come out earlier than they do in the countryside. Nick says, thanks April and Kim. Okay, well next up we have Viji. Adrian says, not down here. Well, not fully anyway. Okay. So Viji then in Chennai in India sent in this one. It says, for this month's Nature Photography Challenge, I took this photo at, and now you'll have to wait for a moment while I pause and remember how to say this, Mahabalipuram, I think. I'm hoping I got that right. Viji is wonderful. She even sent me a link to how to pronounce it. But Mahabalipuram during sunrise. So Chennai in southern India has the longest coastline, and there are several beaches. And while Marina Beach has more than a kilometre of sandy shore, Mahabalipuram is noticed for its rocky beach. It also has a beautiful architecture marvel called Shore Temple adjacent to the beach. Now, I had to be up at 5 a.m. to reach there in time for sunrise. I travel here very often just for the experience. It is close to 35 kilometres from where I stay, but worth the travel, though Marina Beach is quite a bit closer. I wish we could all have a community get-together in the coast of Chennai. Now, doesn't that just sound absolutely wonderful? So, what we need is a particularly wealthy photographer who loves our group and is happy to fly us all out to Chennai. If you know anybody or you can recruit anybody, let me know, because I would love nothing more than for us to all go and have a photographic shared experience in Chennai in India. So get your thinking caps on. See if we can do this. But what a glorious sunrise, what a glorious sight. And of course, it's not February in Fife or in Dumfries and Galloway, but it's still February. It's still February down in India, and so atmospheric, so evocative. It's just stunning. But I just find myself sort of looking at that and kind of, you take a deep breath and you can hear the sea and you can kind of smell the saltiness and you can feel that kind of that morning sort of slight. Well, I don't know whether you get morning dew at that point, but that freshness just before the heat of the day really kicks in. Beautiful photo, absolutely stunning. It did absolutely set off a longing, and especially when you said about the idea of having a community get together in Chennai. Yes, one day we'll have to figure out how to do all that. So beautiful photo there, Viji. Thank you so much for sending that one in. Comments. April says, very pretty, looks like summer. Nadia says, lovely Viji. Adrian says, love the waves being caught in the action. Highest shutter speed to catch? I'm not entirely sure what the settings were on Viji's camera for that one, but quite possibly. Yeah, well, I guess she would have had a high shutter speed quite simply because she's shooting into the sun. And if you didn't have a high shutter speed, then the sun is just going to white out absolutely everything. And Becca says, lovely. Yes. Okay. So next up then, we're going to move on to Meg. So Meg was busy out in the garden yesterday trying to find a suitable photo. And she said, hi Dad, here's a photo I took from the back garden outside. It was really interesting, the texture of the broken wood of the shelves. So yeah, we actually in the garden, and we see, I mean, still that notion of, it's February, there's dead leaves in the garden, there's bits of rotting wood. We've got an old shelving unit that was just a very basic one, but we shifted out of the house several years ago and then sort of put it in the garden, stacked a few pots and bits and pieces on it, and then over the years, of course, it's sort of rotted away. Second one gives you a sense here, sort of coming down to the side. So this is that same little bit of post, brick wall in the background, lots of dead leaves on the ground. So that's but what's happened is, particularly I think it was in the last, was it the last storm? It might have been a storm actually back in October, I think. The one of the kind of supporting columns broke back, and that's sticking up. And so Meg sent in this one where she's gone in with her phone and just kind of got close. Wonderful set of texture in this. And I really like the way the lines, there's lots of really great diagonals in this. And you know, the post itself, as you're looking down, just sort of, you get that sort of drawing away into the distance. We've got nice strong diagonal, the diagonal of the shelf itself behind there, and the kind of soft textures of the dead leaves behind. So very much a kind of winter decay kind of shot. Yeah, really like this one, Meg. So thanks very much for kind of sending that one in. Really lovely photo. Where are we? Oh, Becca says, lovely. April says, love the colours in that wood. I can smell it. It is. And you're along with the kind of sort of wet dead leaves as well. Becca says, the tones in this definitely look like February colours, Meg. Right, okay. Next on, we're going to go to Gareth, who has done another winter trees shot. Not as much snow as John's Canadian one, but we do have frost and snow in pine forest here. Gareth says, a small amount of snow in South Wales. Me and my son went for a walk through the forest. The way the dry stream went through the trees caught my eye with snow on the ground. And that's true. It's this little kind of dry stream here where it kind of creates that little line to sort of draw your eye through the picture. Get the sense of the trees kind of coming up and towering above. And I know these kind of forests. We have quite a few of them up around in this corner of Scotland as well. And you can smell the pine. There's just a very distinctive pine smell to these forests. And then if you go up and you find a little bit of pine sap coming out, the smells are really powerful. But yes, there's that sense of the frost and snow on the ground, very cold, very winter, deep dark forest. So yes, very atmospheric there. Nice one, Gareth. So thanks for sending that one in. And what do we have here? John says, very nice to Meg. Meg says, thank you to everybody for your lovely comments. Then we get on to Gareth, and Becca says, very atmospheric. April says, pretty, the tall trees. And Meg says, incredible photo. Excellent. Right, okay, one more to go, and then I'll work out who's going to get the bonus Smug Points. And then I'll tell you all what's coming up next week as well. So, to round off, I'm going to finish with Janet. And Janet sent in this one. I said, I got a very kind of minimalist feel to it. And Janet says, I've attached my entry for the February Nature Challenge. This was shot in Ottawa last Sunday. So, up in Canada, lots of snow. She says, during a snowstorm, which had 42 centimetres of snow. Now, I'm just trying to work out, translate that into Old Imperial. So, 30 centimetres is a foot. So 42 centimetres, that's probably going to be about 16 to 18, about 16 inches or something like that, which is that kind of size. Yes. Yeah, that's a lot of snow. But she get yes, so it goes on to say, the image was in the park across from the Parliament buildings, and I liked the fence leading up to the tree. And she says, it looks like a black and white image, but there simply wasn't any colour in the shot, so no conversion to black and white needed. And yes, that is one of those amazing things. I've got a couple of photos like this. Winter, snow, silhouette-y kind of shots. And they absolutely look like they've been converted to black and white, except for the fact they're not. It's just that the snow and everything seems to have sapped all the colour out of it. So it does give this very kind of minimalist feel. The fence leading up to the tree is a really lovely composition. My only problem with this one, Janet, is the fact that it feels like the edge of the tree has been cut off here. Now, I don't know what the rest of the photo looked like, so I'm assuming that you had very good reasons for cutting it there. But given the kind of space, the large amount of space we've got around here and all the space there, I think a space of about an extra, I don't know, a couple of inches or something over, about what are we talking about? An extra sort of 15%, maybe 20% width of the photo to the right. If that was then white where the trees come out, and then there was a bit of space just on the, over to the right of the tree, so that the tree sort of sat alone, and then you still had this line going up to it with all that kind of the white of the sky and the white of the snow and just those kind of dark charcoal marks, I think would be absolutely perfect at that point. As is, really lovely photo, just feels like the end's being chopped off a little bit too early. But lovely shot there, Janet. In fact, actually, I'm kind of curious here. Bear with me. We're kind of okay for time. So I just want to see what would happen if we did a little kind of generative fill. I'd kind of be tempted to. So what I'm talking about really is something like that. And but actually, what if we just, I suppose if we make that completely square, something like, yes, a square with that on the line of third, that looks quite good. So we'll do generative expand. I'll just hit generate here and see what it comes up with. And with luck, it will just kind of create a little bit of space over on the right. You never know, it might decide to fill it all with trees as well. Yes. Okay, what other options have we got there? We got that with a little, it's decided to stick a bit of fence going, carrying on. Or we've got that even with the edge of a hill and something disappearing in the background. Any of these work. But it's particularly, it's just that idea that you have the fence going up and then you've got the tree, but you've got a little bit of space over on the side of the tree there. And then this tree sits on that kind of nice kind of line of thirds, but then you've got the fence leading up to it. And I think that then is your perfect composition. That's the bit where you go, ooh, everything just kind of comes together. But without that even, what you spotted was really good. I mean, it's back to that thing of the observational side of it, that when you're there in that situation, you go, oh, that looks interesting. What can I do to capture it? And obviously, I'm not there. I didn't see the scene. So it may well have been that there could have been a building that you were cutting out that was just overhanging where the tree was, or there could have been any number of objects, or even other people in the shot. So we make those decisions in the moment based on what we've got. But if they're in an ideal, I think, you know, something like this would have been perfect. But beautiful shot, and yes, that notion, that there isn't that, it's not actually black and white. It is in fact colour, but it's just all the, you know, all the colour has been sapped out of it. What have we got here? Oh, so Janet says, I have a different version, but there is another tree in the way. I wasn't very successful in trying to get rid of the extra tree. Adrian says, Janet, we do now since around 1972ish, but people of Kim's era tend to use Imperial more, as that's what they're used to. Bit of a strange mix. All right, yes, the difference between using centimeters and inches and miles and kilometers. Yeah, we just grew up with this funny mix, and I think I still default to imperial measurements and then have to do the conversion for the metric. Although, you know, yeah. So okay, so where are we? So yeah, Adrian says, I'm of the age where I was taught both, so can't interchange them. Janet says, I don't think Elements offers generative fill. It may or may not. I mean, in the end, I'm not necessarily recommending you use generative fill. It's entirely up to you. Always with these things, if we can get them kind of in camera, or the majority of it. With generative fill, I think it's useful for little patches. How much of it we use kind of depends on the photo. There's always a sort of sense of the more of the photo that isn't ours, that we didn't create, is now being created on the computer, the further away I tend to feel we're moving from what it is we've done. Having said that, I'm a strong believer in editing. So it's a strange one. It's an odd one. But sometimes I think that generative fill can really save or boost the picture. But certainly for my purposes here, it was just a case of really wanting to get a sense of what it could be, what it could look like. April also thinks that Elements doesn't have generative fill. Becca says, I use a mix of both systems for different things. Yeah, again, it also kind of depends on what circles you move in as to, you know, where what measurements tend to be used. Right, okay, so Becca says she was born in 87, so definitely wasn't taught the imperial system. Yeah. But I think, again, I think anybody of your age, Becca, is also sort of growing up with parents constantly talking in imperials as well. Plus, we still in the UK have miles per hour and measure everything in distance in miles. And you can still buy. It's a strange thing in supermarkets. Sometimes you get things. You'll be able to buy a pound of this or a couple of pounds of that, but you also buy in grams and kilos. Yes, considering that officially the metric system was sort of adopted, as Adrian says, sometime back in about 1972, and we're now 50 years on. It's been a very slow blend. Nick says he edits using Photoshop and Photoscape. Oh, I've not heard of Photoscape. Mind you, I do have to say I'm not that up on other editing programs. I have Photoshop. I pay monthly for Photoshop, so it does everything I need it to do. So I don't tend to be very up on what other ones can, the other photo editing software can do. Right, okay, so where are we at then? So I think, sort of toying with this one, because there's lots of lovely photos here and lots of thought gone into them. But I think in the end, my winner for this for this one is going to be Nadia. Nadia's. It's beautiful, it's rich, it's colourful, it's very February, it's very winter, but it's very nicely composed as well. Tilts horizon, but I'll forgive you that. And so Nadia gets a bonus of 30 smug points. I will just say, just to be reminded as well, that everybody who sent in an image, all 12 people who sent in an image, get a bonus 10 smug points as well. And then, of course, if you've left a comment to say, hi, I'm here, even if it's like Robert, just quickly... I've got no idea whether Robert's still watching or whether he just quickly switched on, said, hi, I'm here in Egypt, and has gone again. But he has left a comment, so he gets his bonus. He gets his 5 smug points for having done so. Well done, Nadia. 30 points to you. Second up, I think I have to go for Viji. Because this is, and to be honest, it was a close run thing between Nadia and Viji as well. It's just so... I could feel myself sitting on the rocks and looking at the sea and just feeling infinitely at peace with the world. I just spotted something down there. Is that a mug, a cup or something sitting on there? I sit there with a cup of coffee on the beach. Bliss. Can't think of anything more lovely just at this precise moment. So, yes, thank you. VG definitely gets the 20 smug points for third place. Second place, rather. And third place, I think I'm going to give to Marilyn as well, because I love the patterns. I love this, again, very evocative. I love the colours. Monotone, really, but all those blues, we know the cold, but the smoothness, you really caught the textures of that ice as well. So... bonus 10 points for third place then for Marilyn as well. And what I will also do is I'm going to do a couple of commendeds. So bonus 5 smug points to Meg for her broken piece of wood, to Mark for the covered bridge with a little bit of sky behind it, and where else were we? To Janet as well, I think, for that kind of snowy minimalist shot as well. So 3 of you will all get a bonus 5 smug points for that as well. So congratulations to all for that. Some lovely photos, some lovely interpretations of the nature of the photo challenge. And thank you to absolutely all of you, all dozen of you who actually sent in the photos as well. So what have we got here? More comments coming in. Becca says, well done, Nadia. April says, yay, Nadia. Adrian says, congrats, Nadia. Nick says, good choice, lovely photo, well done, Nadia. Oh, Jeffrey's joined us and says, good morning, all. John says, I agree with the winning image. April says, congrats, all. Nadia says, oh, wow, thank you, Kim. Becca says, the ombre effect of the blues in the ice is lovely. Nadia says, thanks, everyone. Nick says, well done, all. Becca says, well done, everyone. April says, have a great week. So that's us then. So next week then. Now, whatever. Oh, yeah, little thing here, just in case anybody happens to be around tomorrow evening. That's UK time evening. 8 o'clock UK time, 8 p.m. UK time on Instagram. Instagram Live, I'm going to be interviewed by DG Unlimited. So DG Unlimited, which is DG being short for Dumfries and Galloway, the county, this corner of Scotland. Unlimited is an arts organisation, and one of the things they're doing is they've decided to start having a go at interviewing local artists and creatives, little kind of 5-10 minute interviews on Instagram Live. And I'm going to be their first one. I'm going to be their guinea pig. So if you happen to be on, if you've got Instagram, you want to go to Instagram Live, I assume if you go and find my Instagram page, not that one, where am I? In fact, actually, I can't remember if I probably, yeah, okay, it's not there. But my Instagram, though, is Kim Ayres Photography. Just type in Kim Ayres Photography into Instagram, and you can find or you go DG_Unlimited, I think. So that's on at 8 p.m. Tomorrow evening UK time. If you happen to be about, you can tune into that. Now, other one is next week then. So next week is the 2nd of March. So next week it's the return of the feedback sessions. Now, I'm fairly certain I've already got a couple of images already that people have sent me over the last couple of months. I'm going to have to go back through and see what I've got. But I'm fairly certain there will also be a couple of spare places for feedback on your images. So this is your opportunity to get direct feedback on your own photo. Send me the image. You can either put it into the Facebook group or the Flickr group. Facebook group or the Flickr group, or you can email it to me, kim@kimayres.co.uk. Stick your image in, tell me what your sticking points are, tell me where you're struggling with the image. So if you're putting the photo in, it's because you know maybe there's something that's working about it, but there's maybe something that isn't working about it, and you're needing a little bit of feedback. And that way I can try and do my best to help you and how to improve your image, whether that's through bits of editing or suggestions on how you might have cropped it or how you might have approached it, how you can sort of alter the narrative of it. I will do my best to help. So let me know as much as you can about the photo. Send it to me. Like I say, either email it to me, and if you can, maybe if you are emailing it to me, send me the raw image as well if you happen to have one, because that always gives me other options for editing. And make the most of this. There's very, very, very few places on the internet where you can get genuine feedback on your own photos. This is the #1 way to improve your photography, is to get feedback from somebody who knows what they're talking about. Most of the times we stick our photos up on Facebook or other social media and all our friends say, "Isn't it lovely?" regardless of whether it is, because they're being friends and they're being nice, or because they're not photographers and they can't tell the difference. So it's very easy to get lovely words of feedback, but very few people will actually give us genuine feedback on our photos and help us get past our own blind spots. So make sure you send me your images for next week. And right, and then I'll work out what the next... Now, Nadia having won this, I think if we add up the smug points, I'll do a double check, but I'm fairly certain it means that Nadia will be essentially the winner. So Nadia, you get the chance to choose the next challenge. So I'll send you a message, but start having a think about what kind of challenge, what topic would you like me to look at, that we could then set a challenge for everybody for March, and we'll work out that one. Right, okay, I think that's... Oh, Adrian says he's not on Instagram, nor's Nick, and nor's Nadia. All right, okay, never mind. It's only there if you happen to watch it, if you happen to be it. Oh, Janet says she sent me an email. Okay, I'll check that one out after this. Right, okay, so yes, little reminder, you can always support these podcasts with buymeacoffee.com/Kim Ayres, and of course don't forget to subscribe, like it, and all the rest of it. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you all next week. Thank you ever so much to everyone who sent in the images, and cheerio.